Wolfenstein isn't just a game, it's the franchise that brought gravity to gaming. Being developed each time by a different studio, Wolfenstein transformed playful pixels into powerful narratives, challenging players to confront darker themes and controversial ideas. Hi, I'm the Games Guru, and this is the story of how Wolfenstein made video games serious. The Wolfenstein story begins 43 years back into the past, long before most of us were even born, when Silas Warner, a developer at Muse Software, first conceptualized what would eventually become one of the most influential video game franchises in history. The original Castle Wolfenstein was released in 1981 and placed players in the role of an Allied spy attempting to escape from a Nazi stronghold during World War II. Unlike many of the arcade-style games that dominated the early 1980s, Castle Wolfenstein emphasized stealth, strategy, and resource management, setting it apart from other titles of the time. Unfortunately, Warner faced significant challenges during the game's development, particularly due to the technical limitations of the Apple II platform. The Apple II, despite being one of the most popular home computers of the era, had severe hardware constraints, which forced Warner to employ creative solutions to bring his vision to life. One of Warner's key innovations was the development of a rudimentary AI system that allowed guards to react dynamically to the player's actions. This was a significant achievement, as most games of the era featured simple, predictable enemy behavior. In Castle Wolfenstein, guards could hear noises, see suspicious activity, and even be deceived by players wearing stolen uniforms. This level of interactivity added layers of depth to the gameplay, making each playthrough feel unique and giving the game a sense of realism that was far ahead of its time. Additionally, Castle Wolfenstein featured digitized speech, which was virtually almost unheard of in early video games due to the significant amount of memory it required. Still, Warner's decision to include it demonstrated his commitment to creating an engaging and immersive experience, even if it meant pushing the Apple II to its limits. Upon its release, Castle Wolfenstein quickly gained popularity and became a commercial success, selling over 50,000 copies. At a time when the video game industry was still in its infancy, these sales numbers underscored the game's strong appeal among players and its ability to stand out in a crowded market. The game's success also illustrated the growing market for more complex and narrative-driven experiences in video games, marking a shift away from the more straightforward, score-chasing arcade games that had dominated the industry until then. Following the success of Castle Wolfenstein, Muse Software began work on a sequel that would expand upon the original's innovative mechanics. In 1984, they released Beyond Castle Wolfenstein, continuing the story of the Allied spy. The game took place in a similar setting, adding more depth to the gameplay. The objective was to infiltrate a Nazi bunker, plant a bomb, and escape before the explosion. Development for Beyond Castle Wolfenstein was relatively smooth, building on the engine and concepts established in the first game. However, despite the enhancements, Beyond Castle Wolfenstein didn't achieve the same level of commercial success as its predecessor. While the game was well received, Muse Software's fortunes began to decline. The company struggled to maintain its success in a rapidly evolving industry, as their reliance on the Apple II, at a time when the gaming industry was shifting towards more powerful home consoles like Commodore 64, proved to be a strategic misstep. Additionally, Muse Software's other projects, such as Rescue Squad and Robot Wars, failed to replicate the success of the Wolfenstein series, further exacerbating their financial difficulties. By 1987, Muse Software was unable to sustain its operations and filed for bankruptcy. After that, the rights to the Wolfenstein franchise became available. In the early 90s, id Software, an emerging game development studio, saw an opportunity to revitalize the franchise. Founded in 1991, id Software had already begun to establish itself as a studio that pushed the boundaries of what was technically possible in video games. The team had developed groundbreaking Commander Keen, and was experimenting with new ways to deliver immersive gaming experiences. At the time, id Software was looking to create a new game that would take advantage of their innovative raycasting engine, which allowed for fast, fluid, and immersive first-person experience. The team, heavily inspired by the original Castle Wolfenstein, decided to purchase the rights to the franchise, as it was the perfect vehicle for their new project that would blend the stealth and action elements of the original with cutting-edge technology. The development of Wolfenstein 3D began in late 1991, with John Carmack leading the programming efforts. Carmack had recently developed a new technique known as raycasting, which allowed to render 3D perspective in a 2D world, creating the immersive first-person perspective that would define Wolfenstein 3D. This engine was revolutionary at the time, enabling the game to run smoothly on relatively modest hardware, which was crucial for reaching a wide audience. The ability to render 3D environments in real time was a significant leap forward, as most games of the time relied on either 2D sprites or pre-rendered graphics. Tom Hall, responsible for the game's design, decided to strip away the stealth elements of the original Castle Wolfenstein in favor of fast-paced, visceral combat. This decision was influenced by the team's desire to create a game that would appeal to a broader audience and showcase the power of their new engine. Players would take on the role of BJ Blazkowicz, an Allied spy battling his way through Nazi-occupied territory. The game's levels were designed as mazes filled with enemies, secret areas, and treasure, encouraging exploration and quick reflexes. One of the most notable aspects of Wolfenstein 3D was its use of violence and mature themes. This was a bold move for the time, and it generated considerable controversy, particularly due to its use of Nazi imagery. The depiction of Hitler as a final boss and the inclusion of swastikas and other Nazi symbols were unprecedented in video games, leading to debates about the appropriateness of such content. However, this notoriety only added to the game's appeal. The controversy surrounding Wolfenstein 3D helped it gain significant media attention, which in turn drove more players to seek out the game. At a time when video games were still fighting for legitimacy as a form of art and entertainment, Wolfenstein 3D demonstrated that games could be provocative, engaging, and culturally relevant. It also set a precedent for the role of mature content in video games, paving the way for future titles that would push the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in gaming. Despite a development time of just 6 months, the team at id Software managed to create a game that was both technically impressive and highly engaging. Wolfenstein 3D was released on May 5, 1992, and was distributed through the shareware model, where the first episode was available for free, with additional episodes available for purchase. This distribution method was crucial to the game's success, as it allowed players to try the game before committing to purchasing the full version. The shareware model not only helped Wolfenstein 3D to reach a wider audience, but it also created a sense of community among early PC gamers, who would often share and distribute the game through floppy disks. Wolfenstein 3D was an instant hit, selling over 200,000 copies in its first year. The game received widespread acclaim for its fast-paced gameplay, innovative use of 3D graphics, and intense action, and is often credited as the grandfather of shooters. After the success of Wolfenstein 3D, id Software was eager to continue capitalizing on the momentum while simultaneously working on their next groundbreaking project, which would later be known as Doom. However, developing Doom required significant resources, and the team needed a way to generate additional revenue to support its development. This led to the creation of Spear of Destiny. Unlike its predecessor, which was released as shareware, Spear of Destiny was sold as a full retail game. The game acted as a prequel to Wolfenstein 3D, with BJ Blazkowicz once again taking center stage, this time tasked with retrieving the Spear of Destiny, a powerful artifact believed to grant its holder invincibility. The development of Spear of Destiny was relatively straightforward. It used the same game engine and many of the same assets as Wolfenstein 3D, allowing the team to focus on creating new levels and a slightly expanded storyline. Despite being essentially an expansion of the original game, Spear of Destiny was well received, praised for its continued fast-paced action and challenging gameplay. It was released in September 1992, just a few months after Wolfenstein 3D. Financially, Spear of Destiny achieved its goal, generating the necessary funds to keep id Software afloat while they concentrated on developing their next project. However, with the success of Doom in 1993, id Software decided to put a hold on Wolfenstein series and focus on titles like Quake, which introduced true 3D environments and pioneered online multiplayer gaming. The Wolfenstein franchise, although dormant, remained a beloved classic, with fans eagerly awaiting its return. id Software recognized the need for the revival of the series, but they were too busy developing their own titles. Consequently, id Software decided to license the rights to the Wolfenstein franchise to Activision, a major publisher known for its successful marketing and distribution strategies, who, seeing the potential in reviving the iconic series, decided to accept this challenge. To breathe new life into the franchise, Activision enlisted Grey Matter Interactive, a development studio known for its work on Kingpin: Life of Crime, which was praised for its gritty atmosphere and intense action. Grey Matter was tasked with reimagining Wolfenstein for a new generation of gamers, blending the series' historical roots with modern gameplay mechanics and technological advancements. The development of Return to Castle Wolfenstein began with a clear vision: to blend the action, horror, and espionage elements of the original Castle Wolfenstein with contemporary game design. Grey Matter sought to create a game that was both thrilling and atmospheric, drawing inspiration from classic war films, horror movies, and historical fiction. The goal was to create an experience that was not only a homage to the original games, but also capable of standing on its own in the rapidly evolving gaming landscape of the early 2000s. Released in November 2001, Return to Castle Wolfenstein was a commercial success, selling over 1 million copies and generating approximately $50 million in revenue. It was also one of the first video games that I have ever played, and that's why making this documentary was especially exciting to me. Anyway, the game was lauded for its immersive environments, intense combat sequences, and engaging narrative, which successfully reintroduced the Wolfenstein franchise to modern audiences. The use of the id Tech 3 engine allowed Return to Castle Wolfenstein to deliver impressive visuals and smooth gameplay, further solidifying its appeal. The marketing campaign for Return to Castle Wolfenstein was extensive, with Activision investing heavily in promoting the game through online advertisements, trailers, and magazine features. This well-coordinated campaign ensured that the game reached a broad audience, and its success helped cement Activision's reputation as a publisher capable of reviving and modernizing classic franchises. RTCW also turned out to be the only game in the series to feature such extensive modding capabilities, which further solidified its status of iconic and beloved video game. Despite the game's success, the development studio behind it, Grey Matter Interactive, had a relatively short-lived journey. Shortly after the release of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Grey Matter was merged with Treyarch, another studio under the Activision umbrella. Treyarch would go on to become a major player in the development of the Call of Duty franchise, particularly for their Black Ops series. Following the success of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, the franchise saw several spin-offs and expansions, with the most notable being Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. Released in 2003, Enemy Territory was originally conceived as a full expansion for Return to Castle Wolfenstein that would include both single-player and multiplayer components. However, technical issues during development led to the cancellation of the single-player campaign, and the multiplayer portion was released as a standalone, free-to-play game. Despite these setbacks, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory became highly popular within the multiplayer community. It was praised for its team-based gameplay, objective-driven missions, and deep strategic elements, which distinguished it from other multiplayer shooters of the time. However, despite these efforts, the franchise entered a period of relative dormancy, with no major new releases until the late 2000s. By 2009, the gaming industry had undergone significant changes, with the rise of high-definition graphics, online multiplayer gaming, and the increasing importance of narrative-driven experiences. In this context, Raven Software, a development studio with a strong track record in action and first-person shooter games, took on the task of rebooting the Wolfenstein franchise for modern audiences. Greenlighted by Activision and backed by ID Software, Raven started the development of the new Wolfenstein in late 2005. The goal was to blend the series' classic roots with modern gaming mechanics, introducing new elements while staying true to what made Wolfenstein iconic. The game featured an alternate history where the Nazis were using supernatural forces and advanced technology to win World War II. Players once again took on the role of BJ Blazkowicz, battling both human and supernatural enemies across a variety of settings. Despite the ambitious goals set for the project, Wolfenstein faced numerous challenges during its development. The project suffered from delays, changes in direction, and high expectations from both fans and the publisher. The game was ultimately released to mixed reviews, with gamers and critics praising its solid gameplay and graphics, but criticized for its ridiculous sci-fi elements, which failed to distinguish the game in a crowded market. The sales of Wolfenstein 2009 were underwhelming, with the game selling approximately 100,000 copies in its first month. Additionally, the combination of licensing issues and rights management complexities has led the game to be deleted from all online distribution stores, and the only way to play Wolfenstein is to somehow get a physical copy or download a pirated version online. After the disappointing release of Wolfenstein 2009, the franchise found itself in limbo. However, soon after, Bethesda Softworks acquired id Software and recognized the potential to revitalize the franchise. Bethesda's interest in Wolfenstein was part of a broader strategy to expand their portfolio of iconic game franchises, much as they had done with the Fallout series. Bethesda entrusted the development of the new Wolfenstein title to Machine Games, a studio founded by former members of Starbreeze Studios, known for their work on narrative-driven games like the Chronicles of Riddick. Machine Games approached the Wolfenstein series with a fresh perspective, envisioning a reimagined universe set in an alternate history where the Nazis had won World War II. The result was Wolfenstein: The New Order, which followed the story of BJ Blazkowicz as he joined the resistance movement to fight against the oppressive Nazi regime. Released in May 2014, New Wolfenstein was met with critical acclaim and commercial success. The game was praised for its compelling narrative and successful integration of old-school FPS action with modern design elements. Machine Games' decision to focus on storytelling, character development, and emotional depth set the New Order apart from its predecessors and from other FPS games at the time. The game sold over 400,000 copies in its first week, and eventually surpassed 1 million copies sold, solidifying Wolfenstein's comeback. Following the success of the new Wolfenstein, Machine Games continued to explore the alternate history universe they had created.
Aus Frankfurt. Sind Sie Frankfurter?
Ja, ein Hotdog.
Their next project was Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, released in May 2015. It was conceived as a standalone prequel, set shortly before the events of the New Order. It aimed to capture the spirit of the original Return to Castle Wolfenstein, while offering players a more compact, action-focused experience. The Old Blood is divided into two distinct parts, with the first half of the game focusing on a traditional Nazi base infiltration, and the second half introducing more supernatural elements, including zombies and ancient horrors awakened by Nazi experiments. This blend of grounded military action and supernatural horror harkened back to the earlier titles in the series and provided fans with a nostalgic yet fresh experience. The development team aimed to create a throwback to classic Wolfenstein gameplay, emphasizing exploration and intense combat. Although the Old Blood was generally well received, it didn't achieve the same level of critical acclaim as the New Order. Some critics felt that while it was a solid and enjoyable game, it lacked the narrative depth and innovation that made the New Order to stand out. However, it still sold well and contributed to the continued success of the Wolfenstein franchise. Machine Games' next major release, Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, launched in October 2017. This title was a direct sequel to The New Order and aimed to push the boundaries of storytelling and character development within the FPS genre. The New Colossus continued the story of BJ Blazkowicz, now leading a revolution against the Nazi regime in Nazi-occupied America. The game's narrative tackled themes of resistance, identity, and sacrifice, with a focus on deepening the emotional connections between the characters. The New Colossus was developed using the id Tech 6 engine, an upgrade from the previous game engine that was used in the reboot of Doom. By the way, the sequel to my Doom video is coming soon. Be sure to subscribe to see it first. Anyway, the development team introduced new gameplay mechanics. These additions helped keep the gameplay fresh and allowed players to tailor their approach to combat and exploration. Upon its release, the New Colossus was met with critical acclaim, particularly for its bold narrative choices, strong character development, and its unflinching portrayal of a dystopian America under Nazi rule. The game's story was both chilling and thought-provoking, resonating with players and critics alike. The New Colossus sold well, surpassing the sales of the New Order and generating significant revenue for Bethesda and Machine Games. However, not all reactions were entirely positive. Some players found certain gameplay mechanics to be frustrating. Despite these criticisms, the New Colossus solidified the Wolfenstein series' place in the modern gaming landscape, proving that the franchise could still innovate and engage players on multiple levels. After the New Colossus, Bethesda and Machine Games made the strategic decision to explore new avenues within the Wolfenstein universe, focusing on spin-offs that would cater to different gameplay experiences and keep the franchise fresh in players' minds. This led to the development of Wolfenstein Youngblood and Cyberpilot, both released in 2019. Wolfenstein Youngblood was developed as a co-op-focused spin-off, allowing Machine Games and Arcane Studios, known for the Dishonored series, to experiment with new gameplay mechanics, such as a semi-open world structure and RPG elements. Set in 1980, Youngblood follows Jess and Soph Blazkowicz, the twin daughters of BJ Blazkowicz, as they search for their missing father in Nazi-occupied Paris. The game emphasized cooperative play, allowing two players to team up and take on the Nazi forces together. Despite its innovative approach to co-op gameplay, Youngblood received mixed reviews. Critics praised its fast-paced combat and the potential for fun co-op experiences, but criticized the game's ridiculous narrative, repetitive missions, and the inclusion of microtransactions. While the game introduced new ideas to the Wolfenstein series, it struggled to capture the same level of excitement as the mainline titles. Nevertheless, Youngblood sold moderately well and helped keep the Wolfenstein brand in the public eye. Released alongside Youngblood was Wolfenstein Cyberpilot, a VR spin-off developed by the same Machine Games and Arcane Studios. Cyberpilot offered players a unique perspective on the Wolfenstein's universe by allowing them to pilot Nazi war machines and turn them against their creators in virtual reality. While Cyberpilot was praised for its concept and the novelty of the VR experience, it was met with lukewarm reception overall. Critics cited its short length and lack of depth as major drawbacks, and the game failed to make a significant impact. Since then, there was no news regarding the next Wolfenstein game. While Wolfenstein remains an important franchise not only for Bethesda, but for the entire industry, its future direction is somewhat uncertain. The decision to focus on spin-offs like Youngblood and Cyberpilot instead of immediately developing Wolfenstein 3 allowed the franchise to explore new ideas and keep the brand alive without overextending the main storyline. However, the mixed reception of these titles has led to speculation about where the series will go next. Fans have eagerly awaited news about Wolfenstein 3, which is rumored to be in development, but Bethesda and Machine Games have been tight-lipped about any official announcements. Given the franchise's history of invention and the success of previous titles, it is likely that Wolfenstein will return in some form, but when and how remains to be seen. For now, the Wolfenstein franchise remains a beloved and iconic part of gaming history, with a legacy that spans over 4 decades. As Machine Games and Bethesda consider the next steps for the series, they do so with a strong foundation and a fan base eager to see where the fight against the Nazi regime will take them next. The story of Wolfenstein reminds of Doom, whose global fight against censorship saved video games and influenced the world beyond gaming industry. Click here to watch the documentary on the Doom franchise. I am the Games Guru, love to all, and I see you in the next video. Bye bye!